This is Tony Kami here. Welcome to my first Android tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to make an Android app which can register a user. So the user enters their name, their age, username and password and register. The details about the user will be stored in a database such as this. So all the information I've entered are listed right here, and the user will be able to log in, so Tony Kami, and if they enter a wrong password, an error will be showed, and if they enter the correct password, they'll be successfully logged in and their details will be taken from the database. So let's start this off. So the first thing we need to do is create our workspace, and I'm just going to call this login register. Then open up Android Studios. Sorry, that's not Android Studios. That's it. Click Start New Android Project. Just wait for that. Let's name it. So I'll name the application Login Register. And yeah, let's just leave that like that. Next. So we'll just leave this with the default settings. And we want to create a blank activity with it. So accept that. Yep, that's alright. And click Finish. So we'll just wait for this to set up. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Hurry up, hurry up. Times like this I miss Eclipse. Close that tip. So here it is. This is the main activity. This is the first activity that's going to be shown when the application starts. So the first thing I'd like to do is just delete all this because we're not going to be using this in this tutorial. And also we need to create 2 more activities. So new activity, blank activity, and we want to call this login. This is the activity the user will use to log in. And we also need to create another activity and call this register. This is where the user will register. So the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial is set up the user interface. So let's start with the login. So firstly I just want to clear this, remove this. I like using relative layout. I like using linear layout. It's just a lot more easy to understand. So linear layout there, break it off there. Alright. So we need to give it an orientation. So everything, we're going to use a vertical orientation. So everything we add to this linear layout will be displayed vertically, so stacked on top of each other. And we also need to give it a height match parent. Okay, that's good. So for the login, the first thing we need to do is create a text view which will show, will tell the user where to put the correct information. So wrap content. So the first text should show the user that they need to enter their username here. Sorry about that. Alright, that's good. And the next text will show the user where they need to enter their password. Alright, that's good. Now we need to actually create the view where the user will enter their username and password. So this is called an edit text, and we want it to match parent so it fills the end of the phone horizontally, and also want it to wrap content. So as you can see, the text an edit text view has been shown there. We also need to give this an ID so we can later get information that the user has entered into here. So we'll call this ET, stands for edit text username. Copy this, place that here. This is going to be password, so we name that password so we can later get the password the user's entered. And also we need to set the input type to password, so block what the user is entering in this field. This looks good, but we need to add some padding around it. It looks a bit ugly at the moment, so everything just goes inside. Yeah, that looks alright. Okay, let's add some margins under the text boxes to create some space between them. Alright, we're nearly done with the login form. We just need to create a button which the user will be able to click to log them in. So we want this to match parent 2 so it fills horizontally, and we want it to wrap content, and we need to also give this button an ID. So we can know when the user clicks it. So I'll just name this button login, and we need to show text on the button so the user knows what the button does. So login. Alright, that's looking good. So save that, and now we need to get to the register to create the register. So to make this simpler, I'm just going to copy what I've done here with the login because they're similar things. Save that. I'm not sure why it's not displaying on the side, but let's just click design. Alright, it's updated now. So we need to collect more information from the user when they're registering, like the name. So change this text to show the name, and we need to change the ID of the edit text so we can get the name the user has entered, and also we need to get the age of the user. So copy that again and change that to age, and yeah. You can add a repeat password here so the user knows that they've entered the correct password twice, but I'm not going to do that for simplicity. So here we need to change this to register because they're registering here. So register. So that's looking good. So they enter the name here, age, username, password, and the user selects register. For the main activity, we need to display to the user all the information when they log in. So I'll copy this, paste that here. However, we don't want to display the password to the user, we just want to display the name, age, and username. So that's that. And this button should allow the user to log out. Okay, so the name will be displayed here when the user has logged in, the age will be displayed here, the username, and this logout button will allow them to go back to the login page. Alright, that's looking good. Named everything properly. Okay, so close that. Now we need to start working on the activities. So delete this, we're not going to be using any menus in this tutorial. So the first thing we need to do is assign all the views that the login activity will contain. So the login activity has a button which is called belogin. It also has edit text views which are called et username, edit text password. We need to assign these views. So it's an edit text, so we need to cast it to an edit text. Find view by ID, and the username edit text, the ID we named it username, if you remember, et username. So that's that. So what this does, find view by ID will look through the content view which is currently displayed. So in the login activity will be the activity login content activity XML. It will find the view that has an ID called et username. it will cast it to an edit text because the view is already an edit text, and then it will assign it to this variable here. So we need to do the same thing to that et password and that. Alright, same thing for the login, but this time we cast it to a button because the view we're finding is a button. ID be login. Now we need to do something called, we need to set an on-click listener for the button. What this does is it starts listening for clicks on this button. So if this button is clicked, the on-click listener will do something. I'll tell you more about that. So implement view.onClick listener. We need our class, our login active class, to implement onClick listener. This means it will be able to handle clicks. Yeah, it will be able to handle clicks that click events that are generated by its views. So we need to override methods, and you do this by Control I if you're on Android Studio. So that's it. So what happens is when the login button is clicked, this method here will be notified. But the problem is, if we have multiple on-click listeners on login, which we'll see in a second, this method will be notified, but we won't know what notified this method.
Should I put rice for you?
So we'll do that. So I explained this to you. Switch. What this switch statement does is it gets the ID of the view which notified this on-click method, and then if the login button was the one who notified this on-click method, then this will happen in here. It's just like an if statement. So another way to write this would be if v.getID is equal to row.id.belogin, then this will happen. But the beauty of the switch statement is that it looks better, firstly, so we don't have a lot of if statements everywhere. To add another case statement, all we have to simply do is that, and then change the ID there, but we'll get into that in a second. Alright, so in this block of code here, this is exactly what's going to happen when the login button is clicked. And so we need to do the same thing for register. So delete this, we don't need this. A register has a button which is called be register. It also has edit text which are called name, age, username, and password. So just like before, we need to assign these. Just make that easier by doing that. So we just need to assign this. Okay, so the edit name was a edit text view, so the same thing as we did before. Let me just do that quickly. age, get the username too, get the password, and now we need to get the button. Alright, so just like before, we need to set an on-click listener. So this class is notified when the register button is clicked, and for this class to be notified, it has to implement an on-click listener. Override the method, Control I, and just like before, we need to switch statement case. So this is for when the register button is clicked this time. Then we want this to happen. So we're nearly done here. Now last thing we need to do is in the main activity we need to do the exact same thing again, but we can just copy this, and the main activity has a logout button, so we call that logout, and it does not have a password, so we do that. So same thing here, it doesn't have a password, so button is actually called logout, and the ID of the button is logout. Okay, we need to set on click listener for the logout button too. So if you understand what's going on, you can just skip to my next tutorial, or you can stay here and just make sure you don't miss anything out that I'm doing. So case r.id.vlogout. Okay, so this is what's going to happen when the logout button is clicked. So this is all looking well, it's all looking good, except we need a way to link the user from the login form, from the login page to the register page. So we need to create a link, and the way I'm going to do this is create another edit text right there under the button that says register here. So when this text view is clicked, the register activity will open, and we need to just make that look good. Add a margin under there, and to center this we can center horizontally, and now bring it to the center. Let's just make this bold by changing the style. We also need to give this text view an ID so we can handle clicks on this text view. So we'll call that TV register link. Alright, so this is looking good. So we need to go back to the login activity. Now we need to give the login activity a register link and assign that. So it's a text view, find view by ID, and it's called TV register link. Let me just change that to TV register link. Okay, TV register link. So we need to send on click listener for the register link, so we can handle clicks to the register link. So like I told you before, now we need to create another case block, and in here this will be called when the register link is clicked, basically. So whatever is in here will happen when the register link button is called. And what we want to do is we want to start, sorry about that, we want to start the register activity when the register link is clicked. So the way we do this is start activity, we need to give it an intent. So first we pass the contents, and then we give it the name of the activity we want to open. So it's called register.class, and that would start the register activity when it's clicked. Just make that look better. Alright, so this is looking good, so let's just test that. Let's run it. Just wait for that to run. So it's executing, just give it 1 second. Okay, so we're running that emulator. So that's it. So right now it's showing the main activity. So this is the page the user sees when they've logged in. So let's just add an intent to the logout button. So when the logout is clicked, it will go to the login page. So we need it to go to the login page. So let's run that too. Okay, give that a second to run. So when you click the logout button, that was meant to show the login class. Oh, okay, that was the other app. So when you click the logout button, it goes to the login activity, and as you can see, username, password, and if you click register, it opens up the register activity. So that's it for the first tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll look at storing the user's detail on a shared preference, and a shared preference allows the detail to persist if the user closes the app. So if the user closes the app, the details about the user will still be stored. So thank you for watching this tutorial. See you next time, guys.